Today, we're talking to Tony Davis and John Balsavage from A&I Solutions about the radical advancements in observability, and we're finding out what's in the box.
What you saw was that inside the box was glowing.
Oh.
Okay? And so I'm going to show you what's in the box in a minute.
You're listening to Joel Beasley, Modern CTO.
So you've both been on Modern CTO. You, I think we're episode like 300. You've been on more recently, but what's going on in your world today?
The biggest thing is we, A&I Solutions, work with some of the Fortune 500 and just trying to make things easier for people to get stuff accomplished, get things done. Everybody's got a huge stack of work to do, right? We as we focus in on enterprise monitoring, right? Kind of boring. I don't talk about it at parties, but it's as you talk about it in business, people have more and more to deliver, and it's got to be faster. It's got to be now. And we're doing some fun things to try to make it easier. Yeah. And so we're going to talk a little bit about ScoutITAi and how that really kind of evolved from a 6-month implementation of enterprise software to just something that can really get up and running in a matter of days.
But so I know you both independently. I didn't know you knew each other. Maybe when did you meet?
Yeah, about a year ago.
Yeah.
So right after the last time when I was on your show, and by the way, Joel, he knows that I've been talking for many years now about the concept that there could be a single score for reliability, right? And so I've been with other companies. I met you with Broadcom, and but then I left Broadcom and came to work for John. And he's got a long history, sort of like me, veteran type IT guy. I pitched the idea to John and said, hey, I really believe in this. And I told him the history, right? I started working on this formula 15 years ago and just had a lot of hiccups along the way, but it's finally there now. And when I pitched it to John, I said, because he had the platform, right? So he has the ScoutITAi. And I was like, what would it mean to people to be able to see this reliability score inside of that platform? And so that's how we got together.
And what's amazing about it is like, we're both just like, I don't know, kind of like old farts, it's just like, people have been talking about this stuff for over a decade easily, right? The single pane of glass, and how to make sense of things. And then we was talking about the reliability score. That so much makes sense, right? If you talk about data loss or latency or path indexes, it's just like, no, can we talk about reliability? Does it work or doesn't? How well does it work, right? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's easy, right? And I can actually talk to people about that. I can talk to my wife. I was like, look, it's reliable. She's like, well, I get that. That means I can, make my purchase on Amazon in the middle of the night, right? And that's the whole, that's it feels like things are actually coming together today.
Have you shown this to Adam Barat? I think we did that panel with him.
I haven't. I know he's going to want to see it.
He's going to want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's an observability nerd, or reliability nerd.
Yeah, it's been we've done a pretty good job, I think. I think John would agree. We've done a pretty good job of keeping it sort of under wraps while we finish development. But, we're learning more and more every day that we build this thing. And we wanted to wait till we could get with you. So to unveil.
Thank you. Was Scout... So it's ScoutITAi.
ScoutITAi now, yeah.
Was it ScoutITAi? Was that already an existing product and you saw that and then you came in with the AI component?
Yeah, John.
Okay, so you already have customers on it. It's already in use. Yeah.
So ScoutITAi really kind of just started around ScoutITAi monitoring, right? And how to get the monitoring, again, from a 6-month deployment to just a couple of days or a couple of hours even. And then working with Tony is like, yeah, I love this. As you're focusing on cloud application monitoring, the networks related to it, the network monitoring. He goes, but the information that you're getting, we got to make it even easier, more consumable. And that's where the reliability index came into play. And then we just added in, as he was like, okay, what about AI? And now we're like, okay, well, how do we leverage it? How do we get the people to use it? And what are they going to get out of it, right? And they're like, and all of a sudden we're putting AI against what I consider really boring data, but getting some really interesting results immediately. We don't have to do like a 3-month study or, hire another consulting firm or do anything crazy like that. It's happening like now and like in front of you. And you're like, oh my God, that is powerful. And it's actually kind of fun. It's like the first time really, people have been dealing with this stuff for decades and decades and decades. And it's, who wants to talk about networks, right? No, but nowadays, like everybody's getting re-energized about we're doing some fun, cool stuff with network information and reliability and optimization, and it's kind of fun. It's re-energizing.
Yeah, well, those
really
data
is.
centers are growing at 500, 1,000%.
Yeah,
the compute is just taking off.
For sure.
Yeah.
The power it takes to even be able to run GenAI is amazing. So that's why every time I see a press release like from the big companies like Broadcom or NVIDIA or whatever, I realize why they're getting this much business is because to build the stuff like we're trying to push out to the market now takes a ton of power.
Oh, yeah.
John actually gets the credit on the AI piece. I've always been focused, as you know, on the score, right? And that algorithm. And I told John one day, I think this was before we talked AI, I said, I can do analysis on this score and do back test and all that kind of stuff, right? And it'd take me, I can get it done for any company. I can get it done in a couple of days. And he said something like, man, it's a shame that we can't use AI for that. And he has contacts at Amazon, right? And so next thing you know, he's got his meetings with Amazon. They have Anthropic, which is their big, foundation model or one of their foundation models for GenAI. And sure enough, it was that moment that I've told you about before, that crystal moment. And when we saw what we could do with it, it blew us away.
So Amazon has Anthropic?
It's one of their foundational models. If you sign up with, they call their platform Bedrock.
Oh, okay.
And so...
but that's not to be confused with Claude.
Anthropic makes Claude Sonnet 3.5.
Oh, okay.
And we've turned Sonnet 3.5 on for our product. And the reason that was important...
Oh, so you can... Amazon self-hosting...
Yeah.
3.5? That's not hosted at Anthropic?
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they were doing that.
So it makes it really, really powerful.
And
Makes
private, right?
Private,
Yeah.
easy, secure, right? And obviously we're totally focused on the trusted AI. You got to believe in it. But the power that we're able to to push the data into the AI model, it really is impressive. And then as we get into optimizing that, we're working with AWS, and then Gartner is really also providing some guidance strategically around it as well.
Yeah.
So we really think we are just getting started, and the power is really going to come soon.
Yeah, and this is ScoutITAi is cloud native, so it's born in the cloud. Feet have never touched earth. I mean, this is a cloud native app, and that's from the data structure to the AI to the storage, everything. Applications.
What are all these buckets?
So I'm glad you brought that up. Ever since the films came out, and I know you know about this, ever since the films came out on Sunday, we dropped every day.
Okay.
And people have been blowing up our inboxes with what's in the box.
What's in the box?
I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but I'm going to have to spoil it. At the end,
alert.
Spoiler alert. Okay?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So the film is called 13, so you'll see it under our name or whatever. But it was sort of loosely based on the movie 7. And so if you've seen it, for those people maybe watching and they saw the short film, at the end, John Doe had this box delivered to Agent Mills.
Okay.
And Agent Somerset opened the box with her knife. And what you saw in the final scene was just aired an hour ago. What you saw was that inside the box was glowing.
Oh.
Okay. And so I'm going to show you what's in the box in a minute after I explain what is the glow.
Okay.
How's that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I worked really hard to put this graphic together, and it only lasted about 20 seconds. But if you look at that, what you see are the 13 buckets of degraded performance in some, form or fashion. We call them deduction buckets. And so just the way that radiation, if it hits your body, your human body, it degrades your body until eventually what happens? You die, right?
Yeah.
Well, we believe that the degraded deductions that we get from these 13 indexes that are part of the reliability path index, we believe that it's the same effect on your application. All right, so if you have an application that you've launched to the cloud, or maybe it's an internal business application, either way, if you've launched that application, but you are receiving radiation deductions from all of these different indexes that are part of the RPI score, we believe that eventually your customer will get so sick of dealing with you because of your poor performance that your application will eventually die. So it will eventually cease to be important in the market. So I'm going to pause this right here so I can talk to it. So just a quick explanation, and then I promise I'll show what's in the box.
I want to know what's in the box.
What's
now.
in the box?
Right,
You said what's in the box.
Come on.
When he showed up for the interview, he had this box. Like, I was like, you steal the Amazon box off my porch?
Yes, I'm a porch pirate. I'm a
Porch pirate.
Right.
Yes. Now I want to know. I didn't want to know what was in the box at first, but you said it so many times.
Now.
It's working.
That's right.
It's
Marketing.
working.
Yeah, so basically it's our reliability path index. People refer to it as just an RPI score. And we have customers that are using it, and believe it or not, already they're sort of addicted to working with it. But what it is, it's 13 indexes, as I mentioned, that are bucketized. So I learned, I'll give you an example. Back, this would have been about 2008. I was running IT operations for FedEx.com, and I had a big command center. Actually, I had several big command centers, or like Knox or whatever. You may remember this story because I've told it to you before. But we had the executive that I reported to at the time come into the command center and look around, big dark room, you know, like the NASA rooms and everything, big dark room, looked around at all of the monitoring that we had on the walls, which I think we spent millions of dollars for, right? And he looked at it, and we were in the middle of a problem, like a degraded performance scenario. And he looked at it and he said, "This is all really interesting, Tony. From all this, can you tell me, how is our customer experience on FedEx.com?" And, you know, all I could really answer him with is, well, we've got a lot of problems both on our network side and our application side, so I imagine it's pretty bad right now. That's not a good answer, right? Mm-hmm. He had clearly asked me, what is the measurement of our customer experience right now? And I didn't have that answer. So this is a way for us to provide to customers the ability to have a relative index that lets them score their own service, not FedEx.com, whatever they have, right? And they're able to put a number to it, and it's backed up by those 13 buckets, which are quantified buckets.
Nice.
So it's one of those things where all of a sudden it just makes sense, right? You see at the very top bucket right there, network wobble. If you go back to your VP and say, "Hey, let me tell you about your network wobble," you're like, leave the office. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's fine. Just make sure it's not bad, right?
Just email it over.
Right? And then, or you got the knock with all those dozen screens because you got dozens of applications. This is, kind of really bringing back that idea, this single pane of glass, right? And you've heard that term for, 100 years. But this is bringing it into a solution and putting it on steroids. And then providing somebody where it actually makes sense. You can send it over to the VP of marketing and say, "Hey, our e-commerce site has a reliability score of 95. Well, you know what? 95 might sound great, but if we need 98 because I can see people are dropping off, right? They're going somewhere else. And, Kim Kardashian drops a new lipstick. They're either going to buy at your site or somebody else's. And if you miss, they're going to go somewhere else.
I'm so impatient as a consumer.
Oh my gosh.
If that page doesn't load, if they haven't figured out how to compress everything correctly,
right away,
I'm out of there.
Gone.
Yeah.
That's the
All
way
right.
we feel.
Sometimes I leave because I'm frustrated. Sometimes I just forget to actually continue to go back later.
So for this index, for this reliability scoring model, it's exclusive to us for the ScoutITAi platform, and the algorithm is patented. So it's very, I would call it very specialized, right? So it's the only way you can get this particular index, relative index, is through ScoutIT. A pretty cool thing is it's integrated with ITIL's continuous improvement process.
What's that? What's ITIL?
Yeah, basically ITIL is what basically any IT operations team would follow as the model or the framework for how they run IT operations. So it would be everything from how they ticket and how they, when they find problems, how do they correct them and how do they make sure they never happen again.
Got it.
And so the sort of the end all be all for ITIL is what they call their continuous improvement process. So our engine, our AI engine, which is built on Anthropic, we've trained it so that it understands how this index ties in with ITIL.
Very cool.
And so if it discovers something in the index that it really doesn't like, and it's telling you, if AI is telling you, you really need to work to fix that, it won't just tell you that. It'll say, and oh, by the way, here's how you do it if you use the ITIL framework. That's amazing to me.
You're saving energy. It's efficient, right? It's like, hey, here's the problem, and here's the problem in the context of the framework for how you solve problems.
Well, I'll tell you what, at a company, not FedEx, after FedEx, there was a company where we followed ITIL, and we did do the continuous improvement programs for IT operations, and we had a group of 5 people that all they did was work on that. Now, our AI engine does that work.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's a great efficiency.
And again, companies were working through these processes, right? And you improve and you got ideas and you put it in place and you have a committee and it takes, 2 weeks or a month to put it in and you see it's a little bit better. Now you can do these kind of things in like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Can I implement it tomorrow? Right? No, somebody's out, we'll implement it in 48 hours, but it's like, and that's where like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And then just put it in that cycle. It's pretty cool.
Well, one of the things I think is pretty neat is, we were talking 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years ago when we were at different companies about this. Yeah. And you're like, I've got this idea, I've got this thing, it's coming, I'm working on it, like, gonna make it happen.
You've heard that.
Yeah, right. Like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had this 10 years ago. Well, it wasn't here 10 years ago.
Yeah. Right. But it was the seed of the idea was planted. And so for me, it's really cool because a lot of the companies that I'm talking with or have a show or see a product on, it's like I'm meeting them for the first time. Mm-hmm. But for you, I've gotten to see like the evolution and the fact that you've spent without exaggeration, you spent your entire career in this space working on this problem at scale. And then finally you get to like say, okay, of all my experience, this is what I think the world needs.
Right.
And then you link up with somebody I already have had on the show before.
Right.
And now it's here.
I mean, it's an amazing thing to think back on that. The way you put it makes me feel incredibly old.
Yeah. Well, good.
Right.
That was the goal.
But new. But I talked to Tony. He's like, oh my gosh, it did it. And it literally could be at, a call at 8:30 in the morning, or it could be like, hey, I'm just, watching TV and I just discovered something at, 9:30 at night, and it's just, it's exciting, and then you kind of think, okay, all right, what's next? And right, is this part, right, has been, building over the last 10 years, like you just said, and absolutely love it. Right, we're like, oh my gosh, what can we do over the next 6 months?
Yeah,
and we're really just starting to, as we lock this down, this piece is okay, really build out that roadmap of what's really going to be fun coming up.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see it work.
Yeah, sure thing. Oh, one last thing I wanted to tell you is that it includes Kaufman's adaptive moving averages, and the reason that's important is I learned a long time ago that. Once you create a metric, it's not enough to have a single metric, although that's wonderful. It's not enough to have a single metric and say, well, this is what my score is. It's more important to compare what you have today against your past and see if you're making improvements. And so one of the best ways to do it that I did by hand before AI came along is to use Kaufman's adaptive moving average, which is part of our AI. So in other words, our AI engine is not just programmed to use a formula for Kaufman's moving average. It actually has studied the original formula created by Kaufman. So it understands completely the formula.
Yeah, just tell it you are Kaufman.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Need a picture. Right.
So anyways, that was our little spill there. But I'd love to show you some stuff.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay. So we don't have anything staged. And when I was talking with Josh, I had said, hey, let's break it.
Yeah.
There's nothing staged. This is actually in production. So we're not on a test system or anything. So it's just flat out my account in production. And we have something called universal observability. So like if a customer just wanted to try this out to play with it a little bit, and they didn't want to go into the point where they're starting to monitor their own indexes, right? But they just want to see, what are you talking about with this whole index thing? How does it work? Well, they can just get I guess you'd call it our basic version, where there's nothing customized for them, but they're able to come in here and play with the interface and look at 10 business apps that everybody pretty much uses in the corporate world. And if you're an IT operations person, you have to support these 10 apps. But they get a chance to look at the RPI score for each of these apps, and then they're able to sort of see the problems or the degraded performance. Now, I mentioned 13 buckets, right? Well, they actually exist inside the product. So all 13 buckets are here, and then they come together to create one final RPI score. So on the right-hand side for the score, it will always rank them from best to worst. So right now, ServiceNow is doing great. So if you're a ServiceNow customer, our locations, which are in Amazon, East Coast and West Coast, our locations are telling us that of the 10 business applications that we're monitoring with RPI, ServiceNow is the best, and no offense, Salesforce, but today, Salesforce is doing...
We got to call up Parker. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, Parker, what's going on, bud?
What's going on, man? But anyways, we try to rank them. And then what you can do, we like for you to be able to see the whole score straight up against the deductions. So you get what you get is a sort of sense of how bad the deductions are hurting you, or if they're not hurting you much at all. But we give you the ability to simply turn off the total score. And then what you do is you get to zoom in on just your deductions.
Yeah, let's talk about Zoom.
All right, let's roll over.
Yeah. So you're monitoring not your own applications that you've written, you're monitoring the applications you're a customer of. Because I see Zoom, Salesforce, Dropbox, HubSpot.
Yep.
How do you actually monitor? I'm a customer of Zoom, HubSpot, and Dropbox. So those three are very real to me.
Sure.
What are you monitoring?
Well, in the trial, what we do is we give any customer the ability to use this with 5 of the 13 buckets. So in other words, we don't populate all 13. We populate 5 because 5 is the minimum to produce an accurate score. Now, if they had all 13 buckets, right, you would get an even better score. But we do 5 right now. John, I don't know what you wanted to share as far as the tools or what we use under this, as far as like how we monitor.
But it's all about cloud-based application monitoring, right? So you can either use monitoring points that are provided by AWS in their various locations, or if you wanted to try to set up a monitoring point even right here out of your studio, and see how your studio is interacting with the cloud-based applications here, or if you have your own cloud-based application that you're monitoring in conjunction with all the others, and you just add it to the list. So you can, and all of that, you can set up a monitoring point literally, with an Amazon account in a matter of minutes, right? Just pick the location, this is where I want it to go. Or you can set up one here. It could be either a virtual device or a physical device. If it's a physical device, you get it shipped here in a couple of days, and then it literally takes 20 minutes to set up, and like you can get the wife and kids to set it up. It's plugged into the router. It appears because it comes pre-configured, and you don't have to, it's so simplified, and then all of a sudden you get immediate results. And then you just try to show it to you a couple of different ways. The thing is you get the reliability score. How am I doing? Which one do I need to look at? But then you get the underlying data underneath it.
So this is really good for IT teams who have to so I've always sold my companies before I hit like 30 people. Right. So I haven't gotten to like big but for a while, my first successful project was in real estate. And so I got to work with the customer service that served all like the 2,000 agents, like their IT teams. When we deployed software with them, they had all these dashboards and all these things to make sure that the experience was good. So are you telling me that like when I see Zoom and HubSpot, you're actually monitoring the experience of using those?
Yes,
absolutely. What are you just sending post requests to check, or like what are you looking at?
On the Universal, it's a very simple form of monitoring because we're just simply trying to do that, but to give people a chance to play with the interface. But for a customer who signs up to get their own stuff monitored, we can go as complex pretty much as they would want to do. So in other words, not just heartbeat or endpoint type monitoring, but into the application.
Like New Relic, you can go into methods and see which things are failing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, no. So, we would bring in APM data. Okay. So
and that's what New Relic is, right?
Right. Yeah. Application performance management monitoring. Yeah. Something like that, whatever they call it.
We'll figure it out.
Right. It's
you guys can Google it.
Yeah, exactly. But the so the core of the product is really kind of focused on cloud application monitoring with pulling back the network metrics and related information to that. As we fill in the other 13 buckets, we're also working with customers as they have all those other tool sets. Do you have other networking monitoring tool sets? Do you have an APM that you need to feed in that also populates part of this? Do you have, anything else that kind of fits, right? Logging or, and those kind of things. So
actually, John's right, because we have a current customer, can't name, of course, but that customer is a large global. And they actually, I don't think Broadcom on mind is saying this, they use a Broadcom product to create like a operational single pane of glass. But they ingest from all their other products into that Broadcom product. It's called OI. So anyways, they ingest into that product. That company has all 13 buckets now, and they expose that to us. So they expose the metrics that we need to fill the buckets with radiation. And then we know from their environment how much radiation their applications are being bombarded with. So the cool thing is they have all the data, but they send it to us for real analysis. That's what I love. So we score their data. Because I learned a while back, I think I told John this at the very first, I tried originally to do scoring based on individual metrics. So I'll just say latency, because we all look at latency, or application response time, or page load. I tried doing analysis and scoring just on individual metrics, but it gets lost in context. So in other words, actually, John said a few minutes ago something about, well, he couldn't tell his wife about latency or loss. She'd be bored. He wouldn't talk about it at a party. But if you talk about reliability, which is a derivative of all of these different buckets, then it becomes interesting. And what I learned is that if you do this type of calculation, and especially the AI piece, if you do that against a derivative, an index, far more valuable than just saying, oh, well, we've analyzed your latency and you need to make improvements in your latency. That's great, but who cares? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, one of the biggest feedback things we're getting back, and again, as you simplify, right, now the IT group is saying, this provides value to the business unit, right? The marketing team wants to know, does my internal e-commerce site have high reliability, right? Does my sales team working with Salesforce, is that system always up? Because I need them to put everything in the system, so you're pushing it and now it makes sense. They don't need the 13 buckets, network wobble. Yeah, forget about that, right? Is it reliable? Can my people really use it? Is anybody slowing down? Do we need to do anything to improve it? Right. And that all of a sudden it's like, okay, that works.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I could show you a little bit more about it. I'm going to put the RPI score back. I'm going to switch over to locations just so you can see it, because you had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
So we not only provide scoring by your business application or your service that you're providing, but we also do it, if needed, by your sites. So that
I got multiple offices.
There you go.
You can tell if the Zoom's working.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's not working around East Coast, but West Coast.
Right, where the different WANs are working.
Yeah.
You can even get into your software, SD-WANs, right? Your virtuals. All that kind of
you
stuff.
can track uptime of your own routers.
Yeah, all that kind of devices, and as you extend, right, the core offering is around monitoring cloud applications. But the big thing is, again, I'll go back to that single pane of glass. We can accept data from almost any application that's out there, and then pull it into whether it's going to be used in the reliability score in the 13 buckets, or have it analyzed by the AI engine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's all of a sudden you're like, man, that works. And what does it take to integrate it? And it's all really, really clean. We got some click-ins, right? So if you go back to the universal observability, right, the other tab.
Oh.
And you click into the tile, right, go back to application, click into one
that's pretty
of them.
cool.
So this
Right?
is the same thing. It's just
Right?
a different view.
Look at the only one that's eating it.
Right. So just hit on one, right? And this all of a sudden we're showing the different.
This guy.
Okay.
He sucks.
But all of a sudden you're seeing it with both East Coast,
real?
West Coast.
Is this real?
It's all
Yeah.
live. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are a customer of Salesforce?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, we can monitor them without being a customer.
Oh, how do you do that?
That's part of it.
Part of it?
Yeah. Now, all cloud, I guess you'd call it cloud synthetic companies can do that.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty cool trick. It's been around for many, many years. Like back in 2008, we did the same thing with our competitors at one company I worked with.
So, and it's fascinating though, right? As you kind of just drilled into it, right? Different view, same sort of data. And
East is doing okay.
right. East is doing great. West Coast, what's going on there?
It's a latency issue. It's like they're scoring zero on all these.
How quickly you solve the problem just from this one screen.
Yeah. I don't even know what I'm doing. Ask my wife, she'll confirm.
Right.
One customer we talked with said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give our business users a login to this, and they can come look at this instead of bothering me.
Oh, so now you're going to be like a status page.
Yeah. Give it to them.
Do you
give
follow-
it to the
Well, they
executives.
can, and that's all of a sudden. That's when I heard that.
Yeah.
And we didn't even think about that. We're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Does this track over time?
It does.
So
Absolutely.
it shows this average over time?
Yeah, you're able to do that by changing. Right now we have the time picker turned off, but if you use time pickers, you can just set the time to be 6 months and look at what happened over 6 months.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And the nice thing is with the AI component, you don't even have to worry so much about finding a chart to do that. You can just have the AI engine figure that out for you and tell you about it, which is really cool.
I want a little button here. It's like, email me when this is fixed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, just give me a status update.
When is it better, right?
When is it better?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to use Salesforce. It's not working. I come in here. Okay, well, at least IT knows it's not working.
Right.
When's it better?
When's it going to be better?
Yeah. Close that loop.
Yeah, it's fun. And like John said, we've tried to provide it in different formats. We even have a little table format because a lot of people live by tables, right?
Ugh, no, I'm a graphics guy.
no, right? So, and again, this first chart just is a real easy rank order.
I like this view as the default view.
And so we started with that. The problem is if you have like 200 applications.
Yeah.
So as you're working with the really big companies, right? They got tons and tons of locations and applications and, offices and it just really is wild.
Yeah.
This is great.
It's a lot of fun, fairly interactive and everything. But to John's point, we try to keep it simple.
Let's talk to it.
You want to talk to it?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Hey, Siri. Okay.
Right. So not too far away, actually. We're also working on the app related to this. And again, the whole idea is just how do you make it data accessible, usable, right? We're actually working with a Major League Baseball team.
Oh, nice.
And as they, walk around the stadium, I mean, talk about an enterprise that goes from like 0 to 1 million right away.
Yeah.
Right? the stadium's empty.
Which screens are up?
And then all of a sudden, boom, right? 60, 70,000 people in there, TV networks, press boxes, all that kind of stuff. And they were like, things seem to be working, but the press box went slow and the people up there couldn't get their tweets out or their information out. And everything's like real time and passionate real time. And so they're using this to kind of help within, within the stadium and that kind of monitoring inside and out. But we're also we've been working to really kind of even bring it to the app. So as they're walking around, they can kind of have, you don't have to carry around a laptop,
So who would buy that at the stadium? The IT people that run the stadium?
Yeah.
Oh,
they
cool.
would. Yeah. So it'd be that group.
It's a different view. If you're an IT team for a baseball team, you get a totally different view of the metrics to run a baseball game or a playoff series or whatever. Now they can look at what's the reliability of our turnstiles. Hey, what are the reliability at concessions? What's the reliability? And you stack that up and you see where your weak points are. Guess what you start doing? Making improvements.
So if you bring down the monitoring point into like your localized area. Right. So you bring it into this office or you bring it into that stadium. You can kind of track like they got face recognition software where people can kind of go in. It just becomes really powerful, like the wireless experience. You're having like talking to another customer on cruise ships, and cruise ships are literally just a floating data center.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's and you can kind of give them that information, what's going on real time, right? Because either people are signing up for an excursion, or if they're not, you just lost out on a bunch of money.
They need to get some Starlink on the cruise ships.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I hear they're finally doing it on airlines. Thank goodness, right? Right. But it's, so just as we were, we never really would have thought to work with a baseball team, right? And then all of a sudden, I was at a concert, and you're like, everything there is wireless.
Yeah.
Right? The microphones, the guitar plugins, and it's one of those things where they got to set it all up in a day, do a couple performances and events, and then they got to break it all down. And you have to have huge reliability, right? During that 2-3 hour period. And you got to figure out what the issue is and all that kind of stuff. And we were really, we think that's going to be a really fun industry to work with, and we're really starting to look to tap into.
What's your go-to-market? Are you using partner model, direct sales? How are you approaching the market?
So we're not really big, but really a lot of partner models. So we're working with the people that are actually doing the delivery and making sure that they have everything that they need. Yeah.
And I was going to mention something before I talk a little bit about the AI piece. I had this problem early in my career. So I started really in IT in this field in 1990. And for the first, 15 years, the biggest problem that we had as an IT operational team or an SRE team The biggest problem that we had is that we were told and programmed to be strategic in our thinking so that we would make things better. But what really ended up happening is we would end up fighting fires every day, go home exhausted on Friday, come back in Monday, start fighting fires again if you didn't have to work the weekend, right? Mm-hmm. So even a strategic IT operations team can get bogged down in fighting fires. We wanted to put this together to take care of that other piece. So the other piece is, what if you really thought about, yes, you got to fight fires. You got to keep things going. But what if you were able to concentrate on how to make things better over the next year or so that next year you're not fighting as many fires? And so the way that our AI engine has been programmed, like I mentioned earlier, is yes, you can use it for triage. You can ask it, hey, what's going on? The house is on fire. Tell me where the problem is, and it'll do its best to figure it out, right? But the real value comes when you ask the AI engine about your history and what do you learn from those patterns, and what could you predict for my future? So that's what I want to focus on, as opposed to like fighting fire stuff.
Yeah.
So
and you kind of glossed right over that, but that's usually what happens.
It is what happens.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've talked. I worked for CA and Broadcom for a few years, and during that time, I spent a lot of time as a consultant on the road, and my specialty was IT operations. Mm-hmm. And I think I met with over 60 companies out of the Fortune 500. And in every case, no matter what company it was, the real issue was loss of efficiency and never making any improvements. They felt like they would finish their career, a good career, right? Mm-hmm. But they would finish that career never really making things that much better. A little bit maybe, but not that much, and certainly not measurable.
And that totally goes back to the whole world just being, having more to do than you can do, and then the fire of the day, you get the right phone call or the wrong phone call, right? And you're 100% consumed. Mm. And then you're like, even when you then come back, you're like, hey, I got an idea. To be able to put the idea into practice is just such a long cycle. It's almost more painful than not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my operating model is I'm either figuring out how to get more meetings.
Yep, right.
That's like my core baseline thing, figuring out how to grow the audience. And then that's pretty much it. But like 80% of my work ends up being whatever the thing is happening that day.
Right.
The marketing team got a new director, so now we have to resell essentially to them relationship wise, even though we have a contract, or like whatever the thing is coming at us. This person's leaving, this person's coming in.
Well, even though there's this, I hope is cool to you, and this is what I started with when I talked with Josh about it, and I think it was really what made him see and go, oh, wait, this is different. And so the first thing I want to talk about, you may remember in a little bucket thing that I said that it's important that we use Kaufman's adaptive moving average, because in theory, Kaufman's that moving average actually has three, although it has more, it has three really good indicators. And they're predictive indicators. So for instance, if you take what you are at right now and you compare it against, the first indicator is 10 days back. If you compare where you're at right now against your 10-day moving average from Kaufman, what you end up with is an indicator if today is going to be a bad day or a good day in a triage fashion. So if I were back in my seat as a director of IT ops, I would ask every morning, or maybe have it proactively tell me, today is either equal to or better than your 10-day moving average. That tells me that I'm probably going to predict a pretty good day unless something, catastrophic happens. But if it tells me that today is below my 10-day moving average, according to Kaufman theory, basically what you're saying is something has happened recently that has really started to make an impact. Now, your customers may not be calling complaining at this point, but it would tell me to get all hands on deck. Let's see what's going on. Okay. So the other two are 30-day and 100-day. I'll explain that in a minute. But if you notice, all I did was ask something simple. I did this before so that we could have it ready to talk about. How is ServiceNow doing today versus its 10-day? So this is going to tell me how my day is going to be with the ServiceNow product. And you can see that right off the bat, it tells me that the RPI score today has been 99.30 and the 10-day moving average is 99.59. So that's going to tweak me a little bit, because you should always be at or above your 10-day moving average. If you're below it, doesn't mean something bad's going to happen, but I'm going to be extra sensitive today. Now, back in IT operations time, that was something that I always wanted to know. Do I need to be sensitive today? Do we have something going on and I need to be watching it? And you could see that the AI engine actually goes through and gives you some analysis, or the AI engine's thoughts. Like, here's what I'm seeing and here's what's wrong. So Nothing is staged here. And I actually didn't write down any questions because Josh and I had decided that today the goal is to break it.
All right, I got it.
All right, what do you want to ask?
Change how is ServiceNow. Just change is ServiceNow to are we.
Got it. How are we doing?
Yeah.
Okay. How?
Because that's what I really want to know. I'm the IT director. I get in there. I just want to know how we're doing today versus 10-day moving average.
10 day? Okay.
Yeah.
And again, let me give a disclaimer, and I'll put a timer up there. And the reason is an AI engine, it's a little bit different because for our applications, and let's say that somebody wants to be a trial customer.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to look at those 10 business applications, right? Mm-hmm. Well, just to look at our 10 business applications, we currently have over 35 million rows of data going back for a year. So our AI engine is literally to answer this question because it's got to look at our 10-day moving average, but it looks at it historically. So it's actually going through pretty much all 35 million rows to come up with the analysis. So in general, that's a disclaimer to keep talking and keep stalling so that you're not noticing the timer.
Right.
But in general, when we ask a complex question that will massage all 35 million rows, it's usually between 50 and 65 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and that gives a good rule of thumb.
Who's the smartest person at the company programming LLMs?
Oh, he's not here today.
He's not here today?
Yeah, but he's a great guy. He actually lives, not 20 minutes from here?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. We got it about a minute and 12 seconds here.
I'll let you read that.
Based on the data, here's how the applications are performing today compared to 10-day moving averages. Most applications are performing close to their 10-day averages with small variations. Standard Performa is a very long domain name with a current RPI of 99.57, higher than its 10-day. Several applications are showing slight improvements. Some applications are performing below their 10-day average, and it's listing which ones are and what the variance is. And then 3 applications show more noticeable declines. Yeah.
Zoom is down 6.6 points today, which makes sense.
Now, why don't I get this every morning as an email?
That's right. We've talked about that.
Yeah. It's like, give me my update.
What's
for the
my day going to be like?
It's like my weather forecast. I want a weather app.
Right.
You know, sad face, happy face.
Exactly. Well, and it's the, I love that, delivering the information, right? It's
come to me.
Right. So first we're thinking, okay, what can we provide them? We're still learning. What are all the questions that everybody wants to ask? And now it's even going to go, we know it's even going to go more and more out to the business teams, to the business units, because that's what we heard. And we're like, okay, this is really cool. And this is, again, we're now, I consider it like phase 1A. And we're already like, loving phase 1A. And the people that we show it to are loving phase 1A. And they're like, okay, now can you take my 2 questions, I'm going to ask them every morning or every afternoon and just send it to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just give me, answer number 5 or, and so that kind of customization, that's, something we're definitely headed towards. How do you really become even easier?
Yeah.
Right. But this thing, again, he's been working on it for 15 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And we got the reliability score and it's working. Now we can analyze it in a really strong way. And okay. And then now what, right? There's all kind of automation you can do. There's all kind of predictability we can do. And the roadmap around that, that's what I'm saying. I can't wait until we start thinking about, phase 2, phase 3, and those other kind of things. And that's kind of where we're working more with, again, even if we go back to the larger partners that we're working with the Gartners, the Amazons, and when they see it, they're like, okay, this is where it's going. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. And as they start thinking about what's possible, and we talk to them about what's possible, everybody in the room just all of a sudden gets more and more excited.
Yeah.
So now Tony is asking, please predict what the Salesforce RPI score would be by the end of this year if my focus on improving latency and loss.
So this is real. This is a real, I would have asked this when I got called out at FedEx for not being able to answer that one question because I didn't have a measurement for. Yeah. I would have killed to have this question asked. Tell me how good I'll be. Don't give me like a fluffy, oh, you'll be better, nebulous type answer. Give me a metric. If I have my team, because it costs money to take your team and refocus them, right?
Yeah.
So if I take my best network engineers and for 2 months, I have them focus on better better latency within our network and less loss, how does that affect my current score? All right.
Yeah.
It's a real scenario, and that's why we tried to design it that way. What would somebody really want from this? John always says, I love this. He says, we're sort of past the point where AI should be about writing your term papers.
Yeah.
It was cool to see that, and it's cool to see it create some Python scripts. That's all cool stuff. But what we need are business questions asked to it that give you answers that make money for your company.
Yeah. Which you can do. You just have to be creative and trial and error.
That's right.
Yeah, we've set our own prompts for our business and built some custom stuff to make our lives easier. Okay, so we asked it to predict the Salesforce RPI score by end of the year if we focus on only 2 of the buckets, latency and loss. There is a summary at the very bottom that says, over the year, this is the average RPI score.
So we could go from 88.92, I think that says.
Yep.
We could go from that all the way up to 94 to 96 if we concentrate our team for the next 2 months on latency and loss.
Yeah.
So think about it this way, budgeting process or going to the CEO and saying, I'd really like to divert my people away from building this new cute whiz-bang. And instead, I'd like to improve our reliability for the next 2 months. And here's our score now. It's 89. But I'm going to go ahead and put some skin in the game. I'm going to tell you at the end of the year, we're going to give you 94 points.
Yeah.
And you go ahead and call me and let's look at it on the end of it.
And then if you go back to your e-commerce team, right, you can say, okay, what does that equate to sales? Right? If I got people that are dropping because I got an 88 or 85% reliability score, and I'm going to bring it up from 85 to 95, right? I'm going to keep X more customers.
Yeah.
I'm going to process more customers faster, those kind of things. And that equates to real money. And the beautiful thing, we brought it back this information right away. There's no way anybody would have been able to bring that back a year ago.
I'm gonna try something I've never tried before. How's that?
All right.
I promise. I've never even tried this. I have no clue what she's gonna say.
Here we go.
Oh, the computer's now on fire, team.
Yeah. So every time he does this, I get a little nervous, a little scared, right? He's like, hey, I got an idea. I was like, oh boy.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Question says, I am worried that my applications are about to crash. Do you see any evidence of that happening soon?
Think about that question. Now, it may not be able to answer it. I have no clue because I've never tried it. But I would ask that question. I've been feeling lately that our applications are wobbling, right?
Yeah.
And so my gut tells me, since I've been in this business for a while, my gut tells me that we're walking on thin ice. Can you tell me, do you see anything in the data that tells me I'm right, or am I just off base? That's what I'm really asking.
Yeah, look at that.
Awesome.
There's no evidence of immediate concern regarding your applications crashing. However, there's some areas that warrant attention. Here's overall performance, applications of concern, and so on.
And so on.
Yeah.
This is valuable.
It's got some positive trends there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is really interesting.
Well, and this goes back to, you got a big organization, they got a product launch.
Yeah.
Everybody's nervous about what's going to happen on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Or it's about to hit. And again, you're out there, you're out, I don't know, you're just at the end of the night, product launch is the next day, and you just throw out this question, is anything really going to happen? Is there anything new happening that I didn't see earlier? And again, you can see how now the business user can do that on his own stuff and get an answer that says, no, you're pretty safe, but keep an eye on these 3 things. Mm-hmm. So now you can call up the CIO and say, all right, what are your thoughts on these 3 things? Or, you know what I mean? It just,
well, now you just got to get it to be
usable.
proactive. So when I log in, it tells me, hey,
right,
we should take a look at this today.
Right.
That's what I want. I want it to come to me.
And that kind of takes that notification the next level, right? As people are just like Tony just said, I've never asked this question before. Here's an idea. So, as you figure out your questions, and you take in your set of 3 questions that you want to hear maybe every day or get the answer on, right? I do love that idea about putting that automation in there and just say, hey, give me the answer, shoot it to me once in the morning or twice a day and let me know how we're doing, right?
Oh, for sure.
These are things I've never asked, believe it or not.
Go ahead.
How can I trust your analysis on RPI score? No clue what it's going to say.
I love it when he does that. Like, oh, okay, I hope that works.
Data volume, time range, consistency. It's got some good answers, by the way. Like in general, I don't want to bore everybody with reading everything verbatim, but the answers seem pretty solid. Yeah, I see this as like a weather report, you know?
You get addicted, to be honest.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of our customers has what I call an insatiable curiosity. His name's Dan, lives up in Connecticut. And
Shout out to Dan.
Shout out to Dan.
Hi, Dan.
And he and I talk pretty much every day because he does have insatiable curiosity about this. Some of the questions he has come up with to ask are simply amazing. I mean, deep analysis. And he's one of the people that, even though he does use this for his application level, the number one thing, since I haven't named his company, this won't matter. The number one thing is he has probably 10 sites that are around the world that are critical for his operation, okay? And so he actually, I think, uses the RPI score he does use applications, but he uses it based on the site. So I'm just going to name like Paris or Singapore or Sydney, Australia. These are important to him. He actually asks AI every day several questions about each site compared to the other site. I thought that was brilliant. And to be honest, I hadn't thought about it much to do that. But
yeah, I like that customization.
Yeah. And
that's a great idea.
And of course, AI, everybody knows that the more that you work with a specific AI agent, even if it's well-trained, it begins to learn a little bit on its own. Not saying self-awareness or something, but it learns.
Yeah.
And then when you get an answer to your one question and you find out that actually worked, right? Then your brain is like, okay, what's the next question?
Yeah.
Right. And that's, so as we're just, and again, as we're talking about, Dan, right? Dan's been around for a while, very educated, but he's like excited.
Yeah.
Right. All again. And that kind of feedback is just awesome. It's invigorating. It really is.
And we figured that if anybody can break it for us, Dan will do it.
Dan will break it.
So, yeah. I'll get a report from him each day that says, hey, check this out, check this out. So I love it. We love it.
Yeah.
But anyways, obviously we could go on and on for days because I'm so addicted to this, but we did want to just sort of launch it, right, with you, because the little silly films and everything were really meant to make a point that people like, I'll speak for myself. After over 30 years in this business, what I feel like I've chased my entire career is how do you take whatever your business service is or your application, how do you actually make it truly reliable so that customers never stop using it? And the goal of the film was to sort of create a little bit of a buzz that shows that if you don't address these things, that eventually...
we got the box! I almost forgot about the box.
So I know people have been asking, and the end of the movie was a cliffhanger. But you may remember that at the very final scene where John Doe is on his knees on the ground, and Detective Mills and Detective Somerset are saying, you can't do this. And Mills says, come on, you got to tell me, man, what's in the box? What's in the box? We may remember that John Doe at that point said, I've already told you what's in the box. I tried to live the life of a simple IT operations manager. So I made a visit today to your pretty little app. He tried to live the life of an IT manager. And so at the end, he says, I became degradation. And so the reason that you saw red when Somerset sliced open the box was because the box was filled with radiation surrounding Detective Mills' pretty little app. By the time we got the box here, the app is gone.
Yeah.
The user experience was destroyed. And that was the end of the movie. There's nothing left. His app is gone.
So that is the scary part, right?
Yeah.
Don't let your app die.
Yeah.
Right? Work on your reliability. Make it work for your customers. Make it work for your internal
Dude, you should
customers.
put like Clippy in there.
Right?
Some old piece of technology.
Right. Like an old
Clippy
floppy
with
disk.
its eyes.
Floppy disk.
Floppy disk, something with like dead eyes on
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right. Anybody got a 3.5 disk? Yeah, but that's...
It's been a while since I've had one of those.
Oh my
Go back to your reliability screen. Yeah, of course, he's made a Halloween version
Of course.
of this, right?
Yeah.
So, as Tony would do.
Yeah, that's the when you see our LinkedIn, if anybody hasn't seen 13 yet, the movie, then when you see our LinkedIn, you'll see that same 13 buckets and everything, but it's all red. So it's still radiation coming from the buckets. Right. But anytime you see that, you can click on it and get one of the 5 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Josh can put links in the show notes for people who want to watch the episodes.
Cool.
So what do you think? Is this interesting to you guys? I mean,
it's extra interesting to me from, what I said earlier, watching the progression over the couple years. Yeah. And it's smart. You're smart enough to find somebody who's talented and had this vision to come in here and do it. And I think that's great.
It is a great vision. And it really kind of goes back to just being able to work the companies that we work through, but also kind of simplify where it actually makes sense. Mm-hmm. And really just to see the excitement. I've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
Right? We've all been at this for a while. And it definitely can get dry, Yeah. It's like, to see people getting fired up, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden, then ideas come out of it.
Yes.
And in, I want to say 6 months, but literally in 3 months, as these ideas come pouring in, it's like, what's the next 3 questions? Right. It's just going to be a really fun couple of years.
Yeah.
John said one time, this was a couple of weeks ago when we were in a meeting and we were talking about what could be, like what's next, that we're accelerating, just in our little space, right? But in our little space, we've gone, what would you say, maybe in 90 to 100 days, 120 days, we've gone from a walk, a good walk, to more of a jog. And now we feel like every day we're sprinting down the path of this kind of thing. And, we're actually not considering, John has already seriously got us down the path of actually not just providing what you saw today, but even consulting on GenAI business applications related to this.
Yeah.
So we have lots of customers out there that might actually want to, for instance, if they like the formula, but they don't need the interface, we're thinking about providing the formula as a service, an external service.
You should absolutely.
Yeah. The customization, to that relative to their
a lot of them have
business.
built internal tools. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to pipe stuff in. Well, this is very cool. Thank you guys for doing this. We made a podcast. How do you feel?
All right.
This is awesome.
How fun is this?
Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or a colleague who you think would get value from it. And if you have topics that you'd like to hear discussed on the podcast, either add me on LinkedIn or send me an email, joel@moderncto.io. Every time I get an email or LinkedIn message, it absolutely makes my day and inspires me to keep going.